WJXT Studios. This Week in Jacksonville starts right now.
And welcome to our first show in the month of June, the first month of hurricane season. We're going to talk hurricane preparedness. We're going to talk property insurance with State CFO Jimmy Patronis. That's later in our show. But June is also the last month until the city of Jacksonville has a woman as mayor. Joining us today, Mayor-elect Donna Deegan. Thank you for making time for us because this is busy time. Just elected a couple of weeks ago. Now we've got less than 4 weeks and you're into office. So where are things now? Have you caught your breath since the campaign formally ended?
It's a lot. You know, somebody said to me the other day as a means of trying to comfort me, remember, it's a marathon. And I said, you know, actually it feels like a sprint at the end of a marathon is what it feels like because there's such a condensed period of time, you know, to make things happen. But Mayor Curry's office has just been wonderful in helping us have the resources that we need to make that transition smooth. And it's all coming into focus. You know, you start off with this, you know, the old term that you have to eat the elephant one bite at a time, because otherwise you look at it and you go, no way are we ever going to do this? Yeah, so it's really, it's going exceptionally well, and I'm very excited about the folks that are helping us with the transition. We have some wonderful city leaders that have come in to help us with the transition, and then we'll be very shortly releasing those transition topics and things that we'll be working on.
So here's a photo. Late last month, you named co-chairs of the transition team. So we got Kevin Gay, founder and former CEO of Operation New Hope; Nat Glover, the former sheriff, former president of Edward Waters University now; David Miller, he's been on our show recently, co-founder and executive chair of Brightway Insurance; Lakeisha Burton, who's now the News4Jax crime and safety analyst, retired JSO assistant chief; Darnell Smith, we love Darnell, North Florida market president for Florida Blue; and then not in that picture, former Mayor John Delaney. So this seems like people on this transition team have lots and lots of experience that can help, right?
Well, and you know what else they have is they have the exact type of outlook and culture that I want to bring into City Hall. They are all to the person innovative. They are all very collaborative. They are all people that see the way I do, that if we bring everybody in and hear their voices and bring their voices to City Hall, that we can make an enormous difference. It's all about bringing everybody's ideas in and working on people's strengths. So these are all folks that have been incredibly successful innovating, and I'm excited about that for the future of Jacksonville.
One of the things we see in just that list, those aren't the only people who are involved in what you're going to be doing in taking ownership of fourth floor there in City Hall and what you want to accomplish as mayor. But one of the things we see there is not just breadth of experience, but even political affiliation. Mayor Delaney was a Republican.
Right.
How does that fit together with your vision and how you want to lead?
Well, as I said to you early on, and I think I was very consistent through the campaign, I did not make this about party. And as I've said to many people in this first couple of weeks, I did not run to be the mayor of the Democratic Party. I ran to be the mayor of Jacksonville. And I think it's incredibly important to bring people from across the political spectrum into the process, because we're problem solvers. We're just trying to solve problems and come up with ideas, and those come from everywhere. And if we can bring everybody in and give everybody a voice and a win, then I think that we can really move this city forward in a way that we can all be really proud of.
So, Mayor-elect, I want to point out here, we've got a graphic here, the calendar, right? July is going to be a pivotal month. Your term begins July 1st, and then just about 2 weeks later, July 17th, that's the date when the mayor has to present a budget to City Council.
Yeah, whoever created that calendar does not like the mayor very much, is all I can say.
There's a lot to be done in those 2 weeks. I would imagine part of the transition team and the process there is you got to start working on that right away. Is
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. We're already working on the budget. Had an actually fantastic meeting yesterday with Council President Ron Salem, the new Council President, and we've got a lot of similar desires and beliefs and ways in which we think together we can move the city forward. You know, it's so interesting. Both of us have such a strong connection to healthcare. And I think it's going to be really, really helpful to have somebody
Dr. Salem,
with this.
pharmacist in town, one of the few, you know, medical professionals who's on City Council here. And this, and we'll speak maybe a little bit more about how you operate within City Council, but that's an image that is unifying, right? To see the incoming council president with the incoming mayor, and to see that that image says we're not doing the party thing, we're doing how do we make Jacksonville great.
That's really the goal. I would love to be as apolitical in this process as possible because as my cousin Tommy used to say, there are no Democratic or Republican potholes, right? We all want the same quality of life issues to be resolved in our city. And I think that if we can keep it high level that way and keep the lines of communication and collaboration open, I think we can accomplish some great things.
So let me tackle this. A significant portion of the city's budget goes towards the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, and in the current budget, it's about a third. So late last month, the day you held your news conference at City Hall, Sheriff T.K. Waters was at another event, and he was asked about increasing the number of officers on the street. I want you to see, here's how the sheriff responded.
We're going to have a town hall. We're going to invite anybody that wants to come see what that plan looks like. It's very well done, very well thought out. I had a chance to show it to Mayor-elect Deegan yesterday, and I think once people see it, they'll see how well we operate with being understaffed and undermanned. Now, imagine what we can do with the proper manpower to move us forward.
So what do you think about that, hearing that from the sheriff?
Well, we had a wonderful meeting, very frank, very transparent, and I think that he did share some of those plans with me, which really do look fantastic for the way that he is organizing things to make sure that we maximize what we can do with our police officers. But I said throughout the campaign, we need more police officers on the streets, and I am fully prepared to do that. I think that you look at some of the issues that we have, and some of it I think is a product of not having enough officers on the street. So I think that is something in which we have great agreement.
Do you feel like you can develop the kind of working relationship with the sheriff and the sheriff's office that is going to be helpful in some of the things talked about in the campaign, reducing violent crime, making sure that there's prevention and intervention before we have to do the rest of that?
Absolutely, and I said in the campaign, and it's something that I feel comfortable telling you as part of the transition process, is that we are going to take a close look at the Jacksonville journey and see how we can bring back those components of the Jacksonville journey that were so successful in reducing violent crime. So I think that's going to be one of those things that is incredibly important, that we use all the levers of government on our side, in addition to what the sheriff can do on the law enforcement side, to make sure that we're getting underneath those causes that cause crime. And I think everybody is sort of excited about looking at how that can fit into the current system that we have.
Well, part of the job for Jacksonville's mayor is to work with City Council in addressing priorities, and so stay with us. Mayor-elect Donna Deegan is going to talk with us about working with City Council leaders and more, so stay with us. That's coming up after this break on This Week in Jacksonville.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville with Kent Justice.
And thanks for being with us today. We continue our conversation with Jacksonville Mayor-elect Donna Deegan. Now, just a few days into hurricane season for 2023. And I wanted to show this past Wednesday, you were on hand along with some other city officials talking about Jacksonville's preparations for the hurricane season. National Weather Service saying, hey, expect a normal storm season, but be prepared for the fact that that could change. Yeah, one message from emergency preparedness was to know your zone. So let's talk first, I guess, about getting that first glimpse at mayoral duties when it comes to emergency preparedness and how that fits in with your transition process.
Yeah, the mayor shared immediately when he got it, he said, I just want to say that I hope the hurricanes hold off until after July 1st. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I get it. It's obviously, you know what my husband does for a living. I'm a person that I think in many ways it's hurricane season year round at my house. I hear a lot about them. And it's a fascinating topic, and one that we're going to have to get even better at dealing with, given what we're dealing with in terms of our warming oceans and our rising seas. And I was really excited to see our Chief Resiliency Officer there yesterday. I also had an opportunity to meet with her at length. Yesterday, and she's going to be a big part of
Do you intend
on
retaining her,
like.
Keeping her?
Oh,
is it too early to say that? Or?
No, it's definitely not early to say that. She's fantastic.
Yeah.
I find her not only to be incredibly innovative, but man, she works on hyperdrive. She's got a lot of energy and a lot of great ideas, and I'm really looking forward to having her be a big part of our planning going forward.
That office of Chief Resiliency Officer, or what have you, came after these hurricanes, Matthew and Irma, and we saw what happened when the water just came in. We're kind of in the San Marco area right now, underwater during hurricanes. So that resiliency idea is so important, not just here, but across different areas of Jacksonville.
And remember, we still have not had a direct hit from a hurricane, I think, since Dora. I mean, it's been a long time since we have had a hurricane hit us directly.
Is that 64? Is that right?
Around 64. I think that was 64.
Yeah,
I remember being a little kid, and I still have memories of the trees limbs coming down, sitting on my grandmother's porch. And maybe that's a memory that I have just because I've heard about it so much, but that's what I feel like I remember it. But that's how long it's been since we've had a direct hit from a hurricane. So it's going to be very, very important to work with those emergency managers. They're fantastic. Obviously, you know, I've had an appreciation for them for many years, but yeah, that's going to be when it gets real, and the first time that I have to step in front of those folks and make those calls. But I'm excited to work with them.
One of those things that you know, okay, that's going to be pressure packed when we get there. Let me show you, reference it, we talked about it a moment ago, but to show you that picture again. This past Tuesday, Councilman and future Council President Ron Salem, he posted this tweet. He said, I had a chance to speak with Mayor-elect Deegan about how the City Council and the Mayor can work together to move Jacksonville forward. Yep. How do you see that happening? Any concerns? There's 14, we just talked about partisan divide, but 14 of the 19 council members say they're Republicans. But there's also a former colleague of yours who's on City Council, Ken Amaro, who was consumer focused. Yep. How do you anticipate being able to work with council on your priorities? I just think it's all about relationships. I really do. I want to build relationships with the council. I think as I look and as I talked with the president of the council the other day, as I said, we have many similar goals. I put out the pillars of the campaign. They're very similar to what we want to accomplish in the city of Jacksonville through council. So I think it really is all about being able to put partisanship aside and saying, what can we do together? How can we have a win for this council district and this council district and this one, and make sure that we can create a situation where everybody feels a part of the solution. So if we are all problem solvers instead of just power seekers, we'll be in good shape. And I think we are working with a lot of people who really want to move the dial. You know, that word potential gets thrown around a lot about Jacksonville. And I think that if we have a group of people who are truly willing to see each other and work together and have those relationships just to move the dial, and I think we have a lot of good people on the council, I think we'll be able to do that. I really do. I've said that repeatedly, and I'm just very optimistic by everything I've heard and seen so far. Everybody's been wonderful. Final minute before we got to go to commercial, but it's the biggest way you stack priorities. What are the top 3 as you move ahead to July 1st? Well, the pillars of my campaign. You know, infrastructure is the #1 priority, and given that we're getting ready to have a new report from the Chief Resiliency Officer, I think we'll get some ideas of where we need to put some focus there. Healthcare. I'll be looking immediately to put in a Chief Health Officer who will be a physician, and I've got a whole plan for that. And then, of course, I talked a lot about firing those small business engines. The economic development is going to be really, really important in this administration. I think there's all sorts of, you know, there's so much from the riverfront to the downtown to what's happening in the neighborhoods, but they all fall, I think, very much in those pillars. Change can be scary a lot of times, exciting, and it can also be exciting. And certainly we've heard from viewers kind of on both sides that, well, there's going to be a change. And then there are a lot of folks who say, hey, and there's going to be a good change. So looking forward to seeing how that plays out. Thank you for the time. Thank you so much. Best success in this month, this powerful month of June, getting ready for July 1st, and we'll be watching that too. Thank you so much, Kent. All right, thanks for the time. All right, so you are staying with us too, and we thank you for that. We're going to shift to a statewide leader in a moment. Stay with us for my conversation with Florida CFO Jimmy Patronis next on This Week in Jacksonville.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville on Channel 4.
From a travel advisory issued telling people not to come to Florida to insurance rate hikes we're all seeing, I recently sat down with Jimmy Patronis. He's the CFO for the state of Florida, and we tackled a number of issues that are affecting you and your family. My first question was about the new investigation into allegations that insurers manipulated claims in order to pay Florida homeowners less.
Make sure that people are getting the absolute maximum dollar amount they're entitled to. If we see a pattern where adjusters are submitting claims on behalf of a policyholder and the carrier is discounting those claims in a consistent manner, that's a red flag. So then we start an investigation. If we see a pattern where an adjuster is submitting numbers consistently that aren't reflected by his peers or third-party oversight, then there's obviously a problem with the adjuster. If you see where the insurance company's constantly striking down, that's a pattern that's not appropriate. So we will investigate the adjusters. The Office of Insurance Regulation investigates the insurance carriers. So we're working to ensure that the policyholder is getting fair treatment and not being taken advantage of by the carrier or the adjuster.
Is this something that, hey, we think this might be going on, or are there complaints coming in, or is there a pattern and some evidence that you've already seen that this kind of fraudulent activities happen?
Again, investigation's ongoing right now. We're reviewing thousands of pages of evidence. But when you have 150,000 insurance claims, you're going to have some disappointment. It's a disaster, and trying to get through that disaster sometime, it's going to be foggy. It's not going to be crystal clear. But this is why we're here to hold people's hands while we help them adjust their claims. We've done 11 insurance villages already in Fort Myers and Charlotte counties, and we've paid out over $11 million without the aid of a public adjuster or an attorney, just helping people with their carrier get their money.
So here we are in June of 2023, start of hurricane season, a couple of big hurricanes that obviously affected lots and lots of people in the state of Florida last year. What's your view on recovery through that, and what's happened to try to help people through that disaster from last year?
Again, the most recent legislative session, there's a few things we did. If I go back to 2022, we had 2 special sessions to deal with the insurance crisis in the state of Florida. Those changes are to help long-term bring down rates with your insurance carrier. The most recent legislative session that we just finished, we did a Consumer Protection Act, which was to specifically help hold the insurance companies accountable to make sure they pay their claims in a prompt and efficient manner. If they don't, then there's fines and penalties. There's a tightened timeline. They have to make good on the claims. But I tell people all the time, it's not a sprint, it's a march. We've constantly got to be leaning forward in order to make sure the policyholders are being protected in this process.
There are still folks who have been hurt by it, by increase in premiums, who say the rates are still too high. Do you feel like some of the changes that have come through the legislature and in the recent session and the 2 last year and everything, are those going to help bring the rates down where homeowners can afford it again?
Absolutely. But I tell people all the time, every group that I'm with, I say if your insurance rates have not gone up by 50% over the last 2 years, you don't own a home. I mean, it is that painful. But the things I can't control interest rates, I can't control inflation. Both of those are huge cost drivers when it comes to premiums, when it comes to insurance. So we've leaned forward with our home hardening initiative, where we're offering money, grants, free money to help harden your home with hurricane impact windows and doors and garage doors. The state will give you up to $10,000. We're trying to leverage the good economic times the state is in to harden your home. All that feeds into a formula of dropping your insurance rates. So the biggest thing, if you haven't, call your insurance agent and ask them about a windstorm mitigation inspection. That is an inspection that will do more due diligence in the construction of your house, which ultimately, if there are improvements that your carrier does not have on file, it equates to an immediate refund and immediate discount.
Your role, state fire marshal, in addition to CFO on the financial front, how is the economy in the state of Florida now that we're officially done with pandemic? There's still the effect of what's happened over the last 3 years.
So, kind of a twisted answer. When inflation is high in the state of Florida, that also means the state's revenues are up. People don't think about it this way, but if you're paying $6 for a carton of eggs, that means the state's commission is also higher too. So when the cost of goods in the state are up, the state's sales tax revenues are up. So right now the state's in the best fiscal health that we've ever been. So I appreciate the leadership the governor and the legislature had, direct tax cuts of over $1 billion. We're trying to get money back to the people of the state. If the state is making more money because of inflation, we're trying to send money back, so at least there's a way they are feeling some relief at the cash register. It's not a perfect process, but we know that the citizens of the state of Florida spend their money better than Tallahassee does.
Do you have concerns about what might happen because of uncertainty nationally? You know, the most recent thing was the debt ceiling crisis that Washington was trying to handle. But a lot of people, even through these first 5 or 6 months, have said, I'm worried about what's going to happen to the economy nationally, and certainly that would affect us here in Florida.
Yeah, we're seeing it every day with what we've seen with bank failures.
Yeah.
What you're seeing with cutbacks that are happening at Amazon or Walmart closing locations or Disney pulling back their investments. All those are telltale signs of those companies preparing for the recession that's looming. I was in New York back in March. I met with, you name it, every single JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon, met with them all. All of them are preparing for a change in the financial environment of this country. So I'm glad to be in the state of Florida. I'm glad we're in the fiscal health. We've paid down more debt over the last 10 years than we ever have in the history of this state. We're going in the right direction.
There was recently a group of civil rights organizations who issued what they called a travel advisory, really a warning. They're saying, don't be a tourist. Don't come to Florida because of some of the policies that have been enacted. What's your response to that? How do you feel about those groups saying, don't come to Florida?
Unfortunately, those groups are sympathizing with a failed administration in Washington, D.C. They're trying to do anything to change the narrative, to try to give presidential candidates running right now, when you've got two of them from the state of Florida, they're trying to knock them off their game, give them a series of questions or criticisms that they're having to defend or deal with. I think what it is look, all's fair in love, war, and politics. This is part of the war of politics that's taking place, and the failed administration in Washington is going to try to do everything they can to keep their status quo in place, while the candidates running to replace that current administration are going to do everything to point the failures out of the current administration.
And right now on News4JAX Plus, CFO Patronis discussing Governor DeSantis officially entering the race for president. Also, free money the state is holding just waiting to be claimed. To find my full interview with the CFO, download News4JAX on your streaming device and then look for the This Week in Jacksonville channel. And be sure to subscribe to my weekly This Week in Jacksonville newsletter. It's a real bonus for News4JAX insiders. You get on that list by heading to news4jax.com/newsletters and then click to sign up under This Week in Jacksonville. This Week in Jacksonville airs each Sunday morning at this time. Next week, News4JAX political analyst Rick Mullaney stands in for me. I'm Ken Justice. Thanks for watching on air on Channel 4 and on the CW17, and then online at news4jax.com or streaming on News4JAX Plus.
See why every day more people are choosing News4JAX, Northeast Florida and South Georgia's #1 source for local news.